Welcome, everybody. This is the Talk Your Soul podcast, episode 16, as I like to say, season 2, episode 6 for the reality junkies. But yeah, I'm DA. To my right is DJ Sabir, my brother from another. And today we are going to shoot the shit about Black History because it is Black History Month. I think personally, it's probably the most impactful Black History Month we've had since its official creation because it could essentially be the last one. So, I feel like we should talk about that. We should talk about that.
Yo, it's the Black History let out right now. It's
Yes,
the
the
after
Black
party.
History let out. Motherfuckers is in the parking lot spinning, waiting to dip off. Yep, exactly.
Bro, I've seen so much, with the DEI. I just got off the the gram, and there was something about how for Black History Month, the Black History Month used to be like when it was you would walk into Target, it was like advertised like Valentine's Day, like it's the first aisle. Now it's literally in the back of the store. It's literally like, and the NFL. I know you've seen end racism in the end zone. They're not. They are now taking out end racism out of the end zone, and it's going to say something about love. You know what I mean? So we are here, guys. We are here. You know,
I mean,
uh,
but you had to know that would happen.
say again.
So you had to know the NFL would eventually try to
Yeah.
like not
Back
wash it
around.
under the
Yeah.
rug, but yeah, just kind of like slowly ease it into the history books, you know.
Yeah.
And the last time I'm telling you, I think the last thing we should start paying attention to is the little thing on the back of the helmets. Like when that goes away, then you know it's real. It's over. you know what I'm-
Bro, when they this is when when every NFL player comes out with the Gazoo helmet on, you know it's over. you know it's over. You know it's over, bro. When all
Yo,
these soft ass Gazoo helmets coming out, you know what I mean. Be prepared for war. Like look for the signs.
yo. Oh man, them helmets kill me. But
No
anyway,
Gazoo, like good Gazoo.
but before we get into this serious conversation, I got to bring up some things. On the NBA front, the biggest trade probably ever
Wow.
in modern basketball history, I think.
Yeah.
Luca going to the Lakers, Anthony Davis going to the Mavs. I'm pretty sure my brother doesn't like that at all because he's a Mavs fan.
Yeah. I saw
But
them wearing jerseys. They showed the play you referenced from last year, like that amazing Luca dive to Kyrie, assist dunk Jones to Jones. Like that was just a year ago, and yeah, that magic will never happen again. Uh,
but you know,
hmm,
I read something earlier. It was a guy. He was giving his perspective, and he said that he felt the trade would ultimately pan out better for both teams and be more beneficial for the NBA as a whole because he said, and I'm paraphrasing, what this does is allow both LeBron on the Lakers end and Kyrie on the Mavs end to play more naturally at their position. You see what I
bro,
mean?
LeBron is like 50 years old, bro. Like the
No, I
fact
get that.
he's been
I get
playing
that.
is amazing.
I get that. I'm just saying this is what the guy was saying.
yeah,
And it made sense. And I think that there's some merit to it, but I don't know. I mean, be honest, I'm not that big of an NBA fan, so this doesn't really affect me like others. But I do recognize the magnitude of it.
it is a huge deal, and it sent shockwaves through the league because of they treated Anthony Davis like he was like just a standard big man. He got no heads up. You know what I mean? He was the last one to know about the trade. One of those check your phone while you're being interviewed live. Like everyone in the room knew he was traded but him. Like that happened, which was a little disrespectful. Um, the Lakers just always need to be good, bro. Like the span of time between Kobe and LeBron was like the worst that the Lakers have ever been. Like, and that like as a franchise, but shockwaves were sent throughout the league. And I know Joel Embiid and Paul George, they're coming back next week. Like they're no longer like, whoa, they're like, wait a minute, you can trade anybody could be traded now. Like, my fingers feeling a little better. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's time like, pass the ball real quick. You know what I mean? I got you.
um Afion Crockett, I don't know if anyone ever has seen this, but he did a little skit depicting just what you saw it.
I know, but I can only imagine because he's always like,
Yeah, like the skit is basically he's sitting on the couch and then like he see the news report and he trying to call, I forgot I guess whoever the president of the Lakers is, like it's just him like keep trying to call everybody that could get him in touch with him, and he's like really spazzing out and shit. Yeah, it's so funny, but at the same time, it's like I don't know, like I don't
no,
know.
he's wrong. I will say from just basketball IQ wise, you know, I was talking about it with a patient today, and LeBron and Luca are both generationally talented as big man passers. You know what I mean? Like their passing is superb. And I was like, I don't know how that skill, have both of them having that skill, will pan out all the time because they're both kind of like the ball has to kind of go through them on their respective teams. So I mean, is this just a phase where it's like now we're just going to slowly turn the team over to Luca in the next, this is now going to become because it was going to become Anthony Davis's team, but he won't play center. He's always hurt.
And probably that's probably what it is. I mean, Luca doesn't seem to play. I mean, like he looks like he could be the center or the power forward, but
He's
it doesn't
at
seem to
guard.
play that style of basketball. So
Yeah,
I don't know, but I can see how the Mavs can benefit from it because now they got a true little postman, or at
I
least he better
guess.
be if he want to, continue to play in the NBA.
I guess, and I guess like who is like I know again like football season is just coming to an end, so like I'm not fully invested in basketball season yet, but like you know I don't know who the top dog is out like in the West anymore. Like it's a little like who are you trying to beat? Like if you're if you're
Oh
like
man, I
literally
think that answer is obvious, man. It's got to be fucking Phoenix.
yeah. I mean that's a good yeah, it's definitely you know it's yeah it's definitely interesting man.
I mean, but like you said, men. Well, I don't even really watch basketball like that until it's playoff time because I like playoff basketball, but it's too long. That season too long for me to sit there and watch all them games
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. 82 games. You gotta be committed for that shit.
for sure. But yeah, let's move along. Let's get to the real meat of the conversation. Actually, wait. There is one thing else I want to talk about before we get to that, which is I'm sure
Oh,
you've
okay. I
heard
wanted to talk about
these
this.
plane crashes that have been happening recently. You know, the second one being right there in your neck of the woods.
Terrible tragedy, man. Like I can't even on some different shit. Like it's just a tragedy for our city. I can't. All the people on the plane died. There was 6 people on the plane. They were a family and medical staff that were leaving Shriners Hospital and flying back to Mexico. They had just got some bougie ass medical care, and as a kid in there, it's like a sad, it's so tragic. And like, Cotman in the Boulevard, Cotman in the Boulevard. Like, can you imagine? Like, can you imagine a plane crashing into Cotman in the Boulevard at 6 o'clock on a Friday? Like, It's just like
No, because I don't even understand how it happened. Like I
the plane was only up in the air for a minute, and they don't know how it happened. There's no flight recorder, but there's a flight data box that
so
they found.
so
Uh,
it just crashed on its own. It wasn't like what happened, you
no, no,
know.
no. It was up. It was a northeast airport. There's an airport up in the northeast, small plane, and I think it was flying to. It had a couple destinations, but somewhere out, somewhere out west or something. And yeah, some of the video was incredible. Like I saw one dash cam, someone just driving down the boulevard blocks away from it, and the fireball that went up into the air, like it looked like a wars. It looked like a bomb, like the Russians just dropped a bomb on the boulevard. Like it looked that dramatic, and shrapnel went everywhere. Only one person on the ground was killed, but like many were injured by shrapnel. Yeah, it almost went right into the mall. You know what I mean? It almost like took out what you call it? What's that fucking chicken spot? There's a halal chicken spot up there. It almost hit that joint because it almost hit the gas station. But
Wait, there's a halal chicken spot?
what the fuck is the name of this joint? Assad's chicken is like that's like the hot chicken, you
Uh,
know, kind of Nashville hot chicken kind of. We have like a chain one called Assad's, and it went viral for a second. But it's mid if you ask me. It's real mid. The fries are so fucking mid. The sauce is mid. That shit's got to be like hot as shit. The chicken is the chicken is a little bit if it's
it
cooked
is
well.
what it is, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it's mid. But
Now,
yeah, rest in peace to those and like this is what I was saying as far as the Eagles and the Super Bowl, I was like, man, if this is just like an odd omen that they're about to win this for the city, like I don't know what to be like. Geez, I don't know what
you
I'm
know
looking
what though? Like stuff like that, I can't even think of the phrase, but I believe in stuff like that. I believe that things like that are used. And it's sad,
for. Yeah,
but this is the world we live in. But I want to talk a little more about the first plane crash because that's the controversial one. Um, if you look at the footage, it clearly looks like that helicopter targeted that airliner. Now, I don't know all the details, but I've heard stories that there was some type of Russian delegation on that airline. Um, I don't know, but I could tell you that the one thing that no one is reporting is the identity of the Black Hawk pilot. And I think the reason why that is because there was no pilot. You know
no,
what I mean?
because the homie got up there and he was like, instead of comforting the country, instead of walking us through the moment as the leader of the
Yeah, he
freedom,
wants to blame it on DEI.
right? Like he went to the DEI thing, so like right away they're showing the pilot was white. Yeah, I mean, like the trolls went in on that. They found out like it's quick. Like he's like his identity isn't being concealed. The
No,
troll,
I'm not talking about the airline pilot. I'm talking about the
no, the
army
chopper
pilot.
pilot. The chopper pilot was white. I saw a picture of him.
Yeah, but
They don't know his name.
you seem to know more about it than I do because I haven't seen anything about the identity of this pilot.
No, I definitely saw because only because of that piece that only because he went to the whole I guess white pilots make white pilots great again. I don't I don't know what he because he was I don't know where in his mind, bro. These theories come out of his brain, bro, and then they back him up. Like I don't think they really intentionally know what he's even gonna say half the
I'm gonna be
time.
honest with you. When you look at the moment that he said it, I think he was just being a smartass because
Yeah,
he was
he was
asked the
literally,
question.
but like again, like, is that the time to be a smartass? Like,
I
is that
know, I get that. No, it's not. But what I'm saying is, I don't think the things he say are necessarily like out of left field. I think he enjoys being a dick. So he says dick shit, because like he feel like he has the power to. And think about it. Considering the history of all this, anybody that is in his position probably would feel like they have the power to just say or do whatever the fuck you want. I mean, he ran on the idea of saying fuck bureaucracy and I'm just going to do the shit the way I want. And now you see it being played out. Like everybody's talking about constitutionality, but you could clearly see they are taking a shit on the Constitution. They do not care
yeah,
about
because he
the
has
Constitution.
because any maneuver that is out of line with our Constitution that he's doing, is being challenged, is being like, but like the ultimate checkmate is the Supreme Court, where he has a friendly Supreme Court waiting for any of these issues that rise up to that level. So that's why he feels emboldened to, and the Republican Congress will not check him, because they support him. So this
Now,
is the trifecta. This is the kingdom.
now,
This is the manifestation of the
but
kingdom.
this now we find ourselves right back to Project 2025
Hmm.
because the purpose of Project 2025
Was
is to
exactly that.
change the system so that he doesn't have to rely on a friendly Congress and a friendly Supreme Court.
Yeah,
He
and that's what he's
is
basically showing is that he's doing executive actions that are unprecedented, that are yeah, that
this
are
is I mean, this is the shit
unmatched.
people need to pay attention to, which is the point. Like that's why such a big deal was made about Project 2025 because this is what they're trying to do. What you're seeing right now, everything you're seeing is a part of that agenda. And now with, fucking Marco Rubio being the head of oh, this guy, he's a fucking
Now he's
yeah,
more.
I swear like he just sucks dick for a living or something. Like he is just the most like he has no spine. Like he just does whatever the powers that be tell him to do. Like yeah, I haven't liked that. I don't like that guy at all. But anyway, that's the whole point. I'm just saying like
But
people
yeah, like
really need to
we're
like.
Hispanic, like he was the first Hispanic Republican, bro. Like he was like the first one. Like he was the first one of this, out of the Tea Party era. That like, yeah,
Oh,
man.
I
Like
forgot all about the Tea Party era.
that's the
We should have
origin.
known this was coming with the Tea Party era.
That's what I'm
That was
saying.
like the
Like a lot of
precursor
people
to this
forget.
shit.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that was it. Like the Tea Party era was the precursor to this.
And that's what a lot of political analysts saw, that like that was the red flag that this was coming, because if you think about it, yeah, the Tea Party was all brewing during those Republican oppositionist era, where they were being obstructive in government of letting. They were basically during Obama's first term. They were determined to not let him do anything, and that was their goal. Like, don't let him accomplish anything, and he won't get reelected. That's how they operated for those first 4 years, and that's how the Democrats need to take a page out of that book now, that they're the underdog, and the mob. The mob is out, and the mob has been stroked, into resistance and revolution, and on all these topics, on immigration, on you know uh, DEI. You know,
I
it,
just wonder the same thing I always wonder when I see that. How far are people willing to go? Because I'm gonna tell you now, this current thing we're doing isn't enough. And we talked about it before. Like it doesn't matter how much you scream in outrage on social media. If you aren't willing to do something real, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying like you got to go and be violent, but just expressing your outrage is not enough because they're not listening to that. And even if they are, you could clearly see like your opinion doesn't matter because you don't matter to them.
But I guess during this time, we need to, or the people who aren't don't want him to, I don't know, stay forever or whatever he's planning to do after he's done in 4 years. Elect his put his son in to replace him. I don't know. Um, yeah, during these 4 years, people are going to have to learn contempt for him again. You know what I mean? They thought he was the solution, and they're realizing now that he really truly does not care for the lower class, and I mean the lower economic class of this country. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what your skin color is; you are going to be affected in a deleterious way by some of his threats if they actually if a tariff if the tariff thing is like it's a bunch of like you know what I mean big joker you know what I mean to a diamonds to a spades little joker we're up there like everyone's trying to like Trump, it's more like chess is a better analogy. Like everyone's trying to make these moves to like see what the other one does. As far as like Canada and but like you're saying that the real like you said off camera the the reality of putting American troops in Panama or Greenland was I can't even say it seriously, but like with his strategical aims at those areas, um, is concerning. It's
It's
it's threatening.
expansionist. Like I've said it for 25 years that the United States is the new Roman Empire. And that's what empires do. They expand until they expand so far, they stretch themselves so thin that they crumble from the inside.
Mm,
And that's the unfortunate outcome for every empire that has ever existed in history.
Caesar, beware the Ides of March.
Beware of the Ides of March, which aren't too far away.
Et tu, Brute?
Um, yeah, one last thing I do want to ask you though. How do you feel about Snoop performing at the inauguration? Not so much that he did it, but for full context, back in 2017, he publicly and virally, you know, emphatically stated that anybody that did that was, less than less than a good person, I'll say.
It
But
shows it's another. What I think is that it's another green flag in this new era of populism and capitalism that the the darling of our last Olympics, Snoop Dogg, he was representing our country and he represents our culture in a lot of ways. And even Uncle Snoop, in the end, like, bro, Zuckerberg was at there. And now full disclosure, Snoop performed at a pre-inaugurational party. It wasn't. They weren't at the actual inauguration, like partying with them. But like it got a little muddied up there. Like this happened before the act. Like he wasn't at, but like at the actual inauguration, to have Zuckerberg there is checkmate to me. Like like you already had Bezos, you already had Elon. To have Zuckerberg there, like he's even turned his coat. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Snoop
come on, like,
it's money. It's about money. It's
but
about
I'm saying this doesn't surprise me. We forgot this. This is Trump we're talking about. This dude comes from that world, so it's natural that he gets his friends from that world. I'm not. That doesn't surprise me at all.
yeah. And he's making deals. And in the end, I was listening today, like the Republican voice in this is saying that he's using America's bargaining power. He's trying to make deals with enemies, or in this new world, are there any enemies? Is the
Yeah.
question. You know what I mean? Like when you're colluding with other dictators, like Obama said, like these rooms don't change over the course of your you know evolution and into higher rooms with like there's always idiots in every room. It doesn't matter. There's idiots at the playground. There's idiots on the battlefield. There's idiots at every there's idiots in Congress. There's idiots in the room of world leaders. When you bring all the world leaders together in a room, there's idiots. There's idiots in there too. There can be very smart people there, but there can be very easily manipulated, high ego oriented people there that are not intelligent in the end. Like you don't have to be intelligent to be there in the end, which is uh, poignant.
Yeah. And on that, we'll move on. So, the main topic for today, I would like to talk about the whitewashing of Black history. Um,
What does that mean?
I'm glad you asked. I consulted the scrolls, and according to said scrolls,
Do you do ChatGPT or are you team DeepSeek now?
man, I don't have time to be trying to figure out what's the best method. As long as you can give me an answer, I'm cool. Like I'll try DeepSeek one day, but I'm not trying to have the best app. I just want the best answer.
I mean, just think about the Chinese government. This is TikTok related now. The Chinese. That's a Chinese owned app, and I was surprised that I just jumped in with both feet because I was like, at this point, like, I know their truth is different than Chappie Cheese truth in the end. I know that there is probably, and I want to know what those differences are. From the Chinese version and the American version. You know what I mean?
Well, one day maybe we'll find out. But to answer your question, according to ChatGPT, whitewashing of Black history happens when historical events, figures, or contributions of Black people are minimized, altered, or erased to fit a dominant narrative. Now, it also gave me several talking points, I'll call them. I'll run down that list and, we could just kind of talk about that. So the first one is downplaying slavery and its impact. I never really thought about that in context of whitewashing, but it makes sense to include it in the conversation. So,
Do you want to go point by point, or do you want to go through them and then come back?
well, I kind of because there's a lot of information. So
Okay.
it says some school textbooks have referred to enslaved people as workers or immigrants, downplaying the brutality of slavery. And that's what I'm talking about. Like that's something that America has always done. Try to make it seem like it wasn't as bad as it was. And that's just an example. These are
I
textbooks we're talking about.
my my spidey senses or my beast hairs raise on the back of my neck when people try to uh, casually compare the Holocaust to slavery. You know, I think even in doing that, you're saying, you're trying to. That's a whitewash. That's a brush, if you
Like
will,
they even suffer more than us. You know what I mean?
or as much,
Yeah.
which is not the case. Like if you look at what historically happened during the Holocaust, beginning to end, the time frame of it versus the 400 years
Well,
plus
this
of that don't even
the
exterminate groups
simplest way of saying it is our Holocaust is still ongoing.
yeah, and as black people we're supposed to be aware and resilient, but not at any way benefit from that history. Nigga, they ate Nat Turner. They ate him. They actually. He was so threatening that they ate him, and they killed a lot of people in reaction to his revolt. After that revolt, just because of him, just because that revolt happened, they killed a lot of other innocent black people that were not involved in his activities, just but in a reaction to, you know what I mean, what that energy was bringing. And we should never forget Haiti, who they always try to shit on, because they shit on Haiti today in today's world because Haiti revolted against colonialism. Colonialism. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's what we need to, you know, be aware of, that, like, and remember, you know. And yeah, they're trying to take that knowledge away from uh the next generation for sure, you know. No dubby, no doubt.
Yeah. So moving on. The next point is erasing or undermining black contributions. Now, this is the aspect that is talked about the most when we talk about whitewashing of black history. And for those that really don't understand what we're talking about here, is there are a lot of things that black people invented that history has been altered to show that a white person invented. White people, you can believe that or you don't. But the truth is the truth. You can go look that up yourself. you know and if it's not that, it's basically just pushing under the rug that a black person created it. For example, the father of video gaming, like the true father of video gaming, was a black man, but most people will never know that.
Father of electricity. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
I'm just
those
saying,
those
like, these things happen. But I want to go into what ChatGPT says about it.
okay.
So its first point is the whitewashing of Martin Luther King Jr. Many mainstream narratives focus only on his I Have a Dream speech while ignoring his radical stances on economic justice, anti war activism, and critiques of capitalism. I believe that to be wholeheartedly true.
I think that's what's happening with this whole day of service narrative. You know,
Yes,
that the king holiday became. You know,
yes.
that happened in the X generation. And, you know, that's another brush of, again, you know, trying to put a white brush on.
A black canvas.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But like some of this, like, just to keep it a bean is a larger conversation, that, like, if you look at intelligence on our planet, you know, I think the Caucasus Mountains often are intimidated by the reality that, or the knowledge that, intelligent brown skinned and black skinned people were doing things, you know, on in different parts of this earth, you know what I mean, way before you found out. You know what I mean? And things were happening way before they were even there. There was another civilization, you know what I mean, before the Ice Age.
Here's something I want you to think about.
It's clear now. It's clear, and they were not white.
Here's something I want you to think about. Don't say nothing on it yet. I'll ask you again about it before we end this. But I want you to think about this. What kind of thing has to happen for a whole subset of human beings to utterly despise another to the point where they do all of these things to said subset? Just ask yourself that.
Say it again.
What kind of thing, like what kind of action, what event had to have happened that it would create such a distinct, like to the point where, like I said, one subset of humanity utterly despises another. You know what I
Exterminate the
mean?
brutes. Exterminate the brutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm saying don't just.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask that again
Okay.
because I wanna get on to the next thing here.
Okay.
So the next thing it talks about is the hidden history of Black Wall Street. Um, the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre was largely omitted from history books for decades, despite being one of the worst racial attacks in U.S. history. Now, even in that, it speaks volumes because if people don't know about this, then they definitely don't know that there were other Black Wall Streets that suffered the same fate. And they definitely don't know that Central Park in New York City used to be a Black neighborhood. And now it's a
Philadelphia.
fucking park.
Philadelphia has
A history of that too.
two or three locations that were, yeah, you know, the places where, massacres, happen, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
too many stories.
And the last thing that it says under this is minimizing the Harlem Renaissance. The cultural explosion of Black art, literature, music in the 1920s is often reduced to a footnote in American history despite its profound influence. Now, this particular thing, I understand it, but personally, like, I don't, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, that's not moving my needle. It is fucked up, but these other things are far worse to me.
There's this, there's a, there's a message that is true that there's so many exact examples of Black excellence over history, and the fact that we need to seek that out, and we need to, you know, put some of those things on a pedestal as examples. You know, a lot of people are tired of that. Like trying to, like, we're smart. We're smart Black people. Like, see how smart we are. See what we've done over time. Like, because there's no authoritarian power that's ever gonna, like, acknowledge that. And now we're seeing that, that those stories are going to be still squashed.
It's
Like,
just like I said before. When it comes to blacks in America, we're like an abused spouse. All
exactly.
we want, all we want is to just be treated nicely.
There
you
there is
know,
a section of us that, yeah, there is a section. There is a generation maybe before us that, and but what my hope is that the generation underneath of us, what I mean, like, that I know you don't have a lot of hope for. I feel like, I saw with the George Floyd incident that that was very youth driven. You know what I mean? And as far as action, what I mean. And I'm hoping that, again, during these next 4 years, that a lot of resistance. There's a resistance that is built. Like that. We that our Tea Party, is forming now. I don't know what it's going to be called, but our collective, you know, pushback against what's happening in these next 4 years.
I hope you're right. But
That.
to,
Yeah.
to touch on what you were saying, I actually saw something today that gave me hope.
Okay.
There's a video that I saw on Facebook of a 13-year-old girl. She was speaking to, I guess, the police board, and she was going off on them, but she was speaking so eloquently and passionately, like I thought she was an adult the way she was talking to him until she said she was 13, and I was like, oh wow, and like it was just it. I'm gonna be honest, like I was like really, I was in awe, like because she sounded so. And at the end, even when she threatened him, it just sounded like, you yo, she could be a next leader. Like she could really be a leader if
Right.
she has the mindset to speak like that at 13.
And I think that our next generation of leaders is going to come, even though, yes, you're correct, it's going to come in a world full of suppression, that there are influencers that are woke, you know what I mean, that do use their platforms to talk about this stuff. And, again, the collective forces of all these influences, is the hope that, like, again, we know that the algorithms are going to be controlling. We need to all go into our settings and make sure that, if you choose to view the world through your social media lens, that you need to go into your settings and do some housekeeping. And that's one of the reasons I don't get all of my information from social media. Because of that. Like, because of that, I go where there is no algorithm. And we should all, like, spend time outside of the algorithm each day.
Hell yeah, I
You know what
agree.
I mean? Like, put your feet on the ground, go outside, outside, outside. Be a nap nigga.
All right, so moving on. The next point that they talk about is the whitewashing of historical figures. Cleopatra is the first person they talk about. If you've seen any movie about Egypt, like you've seen what they're talking about here.
Yeah.
Like, the, we ain't even really got to get into that, but
But
I'll
speaking
read you what
speaking
it's.
of Cleopatra, speaking of Cleopatra, and speaking of High Yellow Jones, you know what I mean? Like, uh, she had Greek blood in her, and, um, it's very fascinating that within each culture, the Greeks, the Italians, you see this in Brazil, that within those nationalities, there's racism. Within those, like, there's skin color wars within, even in the Arab world. You know what I mean? Between the whiter Arabs and the blacker Arabs. You know what I mean? Like, this is a tribal, dynamic that's played out in our world. You know,
Why do you think that is? I'm asking, like, honestly asking.
in the end, it's because of power and the ability of the caucus folks to acquire and develop and mass produce uh, bullets and guns and
Yeah.
butter. Because guns and butter, was made up in Europe. They were able to, you know, dominate Africa, for example, in the end, and take all of the resources, the natural resources of Africa, and develop their own countries with that wealth. So I just think it's a matter of, once you had that advantage, trying to maintain the advantage throughout history. You know, and it's, the tribalism, is in us. It's always been a part of us. Like, c- other cultures have killed off other cultures. Other societies have fought within themselves and amongst themselves. Um, and how that's playing out in the modern world is fascinating. Fascinating, folks. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Did
What
you
a
check out
time
the
to be.
Grammys? Did you check out the Grammys?
No, because I never watched award shows. I find them boring,
Yeah,
personally.
I didn't watch it either. Did you see any of the?
I do I am aware of the aura and presence that is Kendrick Lamar. and his
Shout out to B. Shout out to Beyonce too. Shout out to B. Yeah, I mean, she made some good.
yeah, I don't want to talk about that because I ain't trying to, but I think that's just whack.
16.
I
Can we
think
do
I,
this?
I think her getting that award for that album is just whack. I'm sorry. Like you
You
guys
didn't
can
like
hate me if you want.
you didn't like B as a country singer. You didn't like B as a country singer.
I'm not really a B fan as an R&B singer. So, you know,
What?
no, see, because people get that wrong. See, and this is a personal thing. It's not like this is not rooted in like I hate the girl. I think she's very, very talented. Yes, she can sing, and there are songs she has that I do like. My favorite song from her is "Speechless," as a matter of fact. But just in terms of music that I personally listen to in my
Myself
world,
and I is what happened in the end.
I'm just saying, music that I listen to in my personal world, she doesn't really get in there that much. But
Mm.
that's just my thing. But
Oh, the single ladies.
at the same time, like I really don't see her as a country artist, even though she put out this so-called
But
country
that
album.
was see that
It
was
didn't even sound country. It
but
just
that was
sounded like R&B with a banjo.
all right. But listen, so this is from an artistic vantage point, a pure
And she
artistic.
sang Jolene. Like, is that like it? You gotta have Jolene on your album to
Listen.
officially be country?
What she was trying to do, in her defense, for the Beehive, is is she was like, because she's done everything else, she was trying to make a statement that country music, which came from black people, was completely now whitewashed, to your whitewash point, and being triumphed as some kind of white music in America, all wholesome white music. And she was like, I'm gonna make an album of your genre and see what happens. And we saw what happens. They didn't even like invite her to the Country Music Awards. They didn't. They even. I don't think she got nominated for country music or
You
country
know,
music categories.
I'm glad you said that
And
because
so and now when it came to the Grammys, which is like the ultimate stage when it comes to music, so celebration, she got her flowers, you know what I mean, like, so it was history. It was history in that regard. Like, again, it wasn't the greatest album. Like, I tried to have
all
some of
right,
her
well,
songs on
when
my
you put it
playlist.
like that, then I see the significance.
Yeah, yeah,
I do.
and I only understood that from something I saw on social media today. Like, that wasn't, that was not my original thought, full disclosure. Like, but I did see that purely artistic, vantage point of her achievement at the Grammys the other day. So shout out to B.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So moving on, we talked
If I
about Hannibal
was
of
a
Carthage.
boy.
I'm not going to really get into him because it's the next point that I think will hit home. The
If I
whitewashing of
was a
Jesus.
boy. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
The whitewashing of Jesus.
Hmm.
Now this is going to a lot of people going to get triggered by this. But I mean, well, let me just read what it says first. While Jesus was a Middle Eastern Jew, Western depictions have him often portrayed as white with European features. Now, this is basically about that. Like, there's no way that Jesus should look like that if we're just looking at the biology of it. Like, it's not even about, you know, you just like, you really want that much control that, like, but you know what? That makes sense because they've
Yeah,
always
it
been
makes
in a
total
position to
sense. If
do
you
it.
have an empire, think about it. If you have an empire and you're trying to establish control of said empire, you want control of all aspects of the people, namely
Yeah.
the beliefs. Like how they pray, how they think about. So you're going to want to influence future generations of a certain view of the Book of Enoch. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. So yeah, moving right along.
Shout out
The
to the
next point is,
Amharic.
huh?
Shout out to the Amharic. The Amharic. This is what the
Ah,
book of Enoch was written in. This was what the Egyptians, you know what I mean, got hieroglyphs from this civilization. It's always about civilizations jacking other civilizations, you know what I mean, for their gifts, you know what I mean? And us as black people have been hijacked. And that's like what Cat Williams said, like, why y'all paying so much attention to us if y'all hate us so much? You know what I mean? Like y'all spend way like y'all love us. You know what I mean? Jazz, hip hop. You know what I mean? Like y'all love our culture. You know what I mean? Like, why y'all always paying attention to us? You know what I mean? Because we
I'm
give
glad you asked.
because we
I'll
give
I'll I'll give you my answer to that after I run through this list
say
because
more.
that's basically what I asked you earlier. That's similarly the same question. So the next point is we got about 7 points here, so I'm gonna try to rush as much as I can through these. The next point is ignoring or diminishing the civil rights struggle. Now we are well aware about that. Um, they talk about Rosa Parks. We all know about how they just tried to make it seem like she was just tired, like she wasn't actually you know purposely protesting, like she was just tired, like that's basically. But
Bro,
anyway,
bro, rest in peace to John Lewis. Like, real shit. If John Lewis died, you know, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they would have eat him. They would have eat him because he was sitting in Congress as the last, you know, evidence as someone who got billy clubbed by a police officer in a civil rights uh, protest, try and walk across the bridge, you down there. Um, yeah, they gave him a new one. He was laid out. I saw the footage today. You know what I mean? Like I said, that's why I said people are showing stuff. Like I saw that he was laid out, and other people were getting sprayed, and they were all like running across the bridge. And he had got took one upside his head, and he was a congressional legend sitting there in that room. You know what I mean? With his passing, you know, it was poignant in that like there's no one left from that era alive. Most of them got killed during the era. He was the last one alive in government from that era. You know what I mean? And you know, he's not in the room anymore. Like and we have a new kingdom. Welcome to Jurassic Park.
yeah. So the next thing it talks about is the distortion of Malcolm X's legacy.
Mm,
um in a nutshell, the media often portrays him as violent. He wasn't really violent. He was militant. That's different,
mm,
you know. Um, it says here, I'll just read what it says. Malcolm X is often portrayed as merely violent in contrast to MLK, ignoring his evolution, political philosophy, and contributions to Black empowerment. But yeah, that's always been something that's been done on the low throughout the past couple of decades. Like they kind of put them at odds with each other, like they
yeah.
were warring philosophies when they were actually friends. You know what I mean?
They
Like,
did respect each other. They respected each other for sure.
yes, and they didn't even really have warring philosophies. It was just that Malcolm was really willing to, you know, hit you over the head, literally. When
Yeah,
when Martin Luther King didn't necessarily want to have that approach. He
yeah,
wanted Martin Luther King's approach, in my opinion, was a way for us to keep our dignity throughout this. Because if things would have gotten like truly violent, then that would have just gave them the justification to wipe us out.
And he was still using the church as a, you know, as a bridge to white culture. Having, white priests out there sometimes, collaborating with him. Um, yeah, like he was that danger was evident, and that's probably why he was taken out. And to your point of, and our point of collecting La Resistance, they were definitely afraid of the two of them ever coming together and really working together. You know, and speaking of Malcolm X, his adventures in Africa and like connecting with African leaders, like that was starting to become very dangerous, also. For the powers that be. So that's probably why he's not here. And yeah, like now you can, now it's public information of the CIA's and the FBI's tracking and tormenting of said leaders. In our real history. You know.
Nicely said. So the next thing, the sanitizing of Juneteenth.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, I knew you would want to talk about this.
I'm just
It
saying,
says, while now recognized as a federal holiday, the deeper history of Juneteenth, including continued systematic oppression after slavery, remains under discussed. I'm gonna be honest with you, and this has never been a point of disrespect when I say this, but I feel like everybody is kind of a little out of pocket with this. Like, because now it could be that I'm not fully educated on all aspects of Juneteenth, but I do understand its origins, and if we were promoting a holiday based anyway on its origins, then it should never have reached the federal level to begin with. But
your mic, wiggle your mic. Something happened to your mic. Wiggle your mic a little bit or something. It's
what?
doing
How's
it's,
that?
it's doing that thing again. But I'll say that the irony of us out there barbecuing on Juneteenth when they used to barbecue us. You know what I mean? Like, how about
Now,
that?
and this is, yeah, which kind of leads to my point now. Again, on social media, everybody always says their piece about it. And then there are some people that are kind of doing something out in the community, you know, in celebration of it. But I think a platform like Juneteenth is being underutilized by us. Like we could be doing so much more with that, especially if now it's a federal holiday. You see what I mean? But it doesn't matter because the memo is going to take this away too. The memo, like, which is kind of the point. Like, that's why I said in the beginning, like, this could possibly be the last Black History Month because they're not going to recognize it after this. And then, eventually we'll stop recognizing it, or it'll just inflame us enough to make us, I don't know, do something drastic,
Yeah.
or just like figure out a way to like embrace it for ourselves, which that's what I think we should do. Like,
As a DJ, like I guess I should rise to the opportunity and occasion to celebrate the last Black History Month. You know what I mean, by having an after party. Yeah.
well, you stupid.
That we got to put that on the fucking page. Yeah, that shit was goofy.
You
But
stupid.
you know, like the after party, yeah, for the last Black History Month. You know what I mean? Like, I can already think of the playlist. It's already in my mind. I got y'all. I got y'all. Whatever, what I mean? I
Yo.
got you. I'm here for the culture, as always. As always. I'll do the
You know
Elon
what?
John. I'll do
You
the
know
Elon
what?
John. I give my love to you.
I know I have a DJ friend that I know would do something great with this concept because he
Yeah.
already a militant dude. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I'm gonna tell him to create. I'm gonna tell him to do his next show on my station.
I was about to say you got to put it on the station. You got to
Yeah,
put that
like I
on the
want him to
station.
do his next show on my station
Yeah,
with that theme.
for Black
So
History Month. For Black History Month. That's how
yeah,
you celebrate on your station.
yeah,
Shout out to Soul City Radio.
yeah. Shout out to Soul City Radio. No, I
You
ain't
already
gonna put
know.
that banner up. I'm not even gonna do that. But anyway, so let's move along because we still got about three more. White actors playing black or biracial roles. That's just something that personally irks me. I hate seeing it. I hate seeing it because it's so disrespectful.
Oh,
It's so disrespectful. Like, you mean to tell me there's no black actor you couldn't have found? Like even the worst one would have done.
the westerns. As an ex generationer, the westerns, bro. Remember the westerns? All the Indians
My
were white
grandfather
people.
loved the Western. Yes, exactly. But yeah, exactly. It happened to the Native Americans too. Like that's something that they just done throughout history.
Oh my
As a part of
god,
media control, I don't know, but I hate that. Like for
shit
real.
is annoying. Shit is
Yeah, I really
annoying,
hate
man.
that.
Bad casting. Bad casting.
Bad casting. And to touch on, what we were mentioning earlier about like the whole historical downplaying of ancient Egypt, essentially. That's what they say. They're talking about all of those movies about ancient Egypt, like, and you see it. Like Elizabeth Taylor was not Cleopatra. I don't give a fuck. Like how awesome and hot she is but no, she is not Cleopatra. You mean to tell me you couldn't find no one? Like no one. And I used to ask that question a lot when I was see this. Like, there's no one you could find. Even if it's somebody you had to just like have no speaking lines. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't you
Yeah,
couldn't give
they
us
could have
that
found.
much.
They could have found. There was plenty of people
They
they
could
could
have
have
found.
found. And shout out in a modern day world, shout out to Tubi for giving more brown people opportunity to be viewed.
But you know what? This brings up a point. And I just really thought about this just now. I think, and this is just my opinion, I think they found a new way to kind of like do it in a way that the image you see on the screen is an authentic black person, but he's not in a black American. And that's this influx of black English actors, you know, landing these big roles on American cinema. No offense to my man from Snowfall, because he was awesome, but he's just the point of what I'm
No
talking about.
offense
Like,
to Stringer Bell.
yeah, like Stringer Bell, fucking the last great black American actor. Well, I ain't gonna say the last, but I'm saying we still have shout out to Denzel. We have them still. But what happens when they're gone?
Yeah,
But like I was trying to bring up Chadwick Boseman. Like I think he probably him and Michael B. Jordan. They're kind of like that. They were that last young. So now you got Michael B. Jordan. What's my man Jonathan Majors? They're like that last line
shout out
of
to Tyrese. Shout out to Tyrese on
yeah, like
Tubi.
of black American actors that have like really established themselves in Hollywood.
Bro, you have got to watch Tubi. There are some great
I
Tyrese
hear you,
movies on
man. They actually gonna have the Super Bowl for free on there, so I might watch since it's supposed to be for free. That's what it's
I
saying.
finished Sugar Mama today. I finished Sugar Mama today. That was a I didn't see that ending coming. You know what I mean? Like
What? Wait, what? What you say? You fed a sugar mama?
I finished watching the movie called Sugar
Oh,
Mama on
yeah.
Tubi. You know what I mean? And I didn't see that ending coming.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. That's the kind of another thing that kind of irks me. It's like that's the only lane they give us.
Right?
We got to make shit like that.
Yeah.
That's the lane they've given us.
That's the platform. That's the That's how the Tubi is. In my opinion, Tubi is the new Netflix. Like remember, Netflix was just like it was free. and it was like you could just share it once you had one, like you could share it with everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, once, and then it was,
And then they went corporate.
yeah, but it was that became, just think about it. Think about the when that was not where movies were dropped. Remember that world? Like when they weren't, when like you would see movies, but like Netflix movies, that was definitely like an evolution of streaming that like catapulted during the pandemic. And I do want to do a further review of the pandemic. I thought about that today. Upon further review, I want to do upon further review of the pandemic for sure. Like we need to do that, you know, because
Okay.
there's been trauma, and I'm at a point now where I'm acknowledging trauma in my life. We need to acknowledge the trauma amongst our culture. You know what I mean? The pandemic being one of them, but that's going to be a whole episode. Um, but I don't want to digress. But yeah, you know what I mean. And shout out to we got a guest coming in March. You know what I mean. Like you're gonna learn more about us. You know what I mean. And
Oh, yes, you are. Yes, you are, people. Yes, you are. Shout out to my man Nat.
Natural Truth, Nat Turner.
Natural.
You know what I mean. They ate Nat Turner. They ate him. You know what I mean. They
Yeah,
had
I definitely want to know what he thinks about that.
they had uh you know our skin on shoes, like gators. They had, I don't even know what to
Niggas.
call them.
Niggas.
They had niggas.
They had niggas. I don't even want to laugh, yo, but I'm just saying, like, can you imagine that though? Can you imagine that? Like, can you imagine like they at like some type of social function
Right,
and it's like, oh, you got a brand new set of niggas. Oh, those are nice.
you come to the Clan conference, bro, and you bust out your niggas.
Yo,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, yo. That
I
is
got
so
my
fucked up,
air
but it's
niggas
like,
on.
yeah, it's so fucked up, but like I can see that shit. Like I can see them doing that shit.
You know what I mean? The laces is from the intestines. You know what I mean?
Oh my god, yo. See, which leads me to my point. Like we're making light of it and all, but which leads me to my point. Like, what level of hate? What has to happen for a level of hatred so much that you would do that? You see what I mean? Like that's what I'm ultimately going to give my answer to, but I'm still not ready for that yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna get to these last 2 points, and then I'll give you that answer. So the next one is the erasure of black cowboys. Now, I will admit I don't know too much about that, but I do know that there was some whitewashing of that history. Bass Reeves' legacy, like Bass Reeves is probably the first person people think of when it comes to black cowboys. Um, and yeah, his legacy has been completely ignored. According to ChatGPT, a legendary black U.S. Marshal who ins- who inspired the Lone Ranger myth. Oh, so he wasn't necessarily a cowboy, but yeah, I guess he was. He was the guy behind the Lone Ranger myth. Like it was this
Yeah,
guy.
yeah. I
They
definitely heard.
actually do have a show about him. I saw it. Again, another black British actor is playing his part though. You know what I mean? Like but you guys are seeing what I'm saying. Like you see, and like I said, personally, I think that's how they do it personally. I mean, today, like because we made so much of a stink about all of this other stuff. Like this is
Yeah,
the
made
solution
the
they came
elevate
up
the
with.
Brits, so that like when he's talking in the interview, he doesn't even sound black and shit.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But anyway,
Shout out to
so
London drill rap.
to who?
London drill rap is crazy, bro. Like like
Oh,
this
I
drill.
always love their cadence. Like they
Yeah,
have great cadence. Yeah, you got to listen. To, like some of them, I got a lot of like underground bangers that come from some
I got some.
UK.
I got some German rap. I definitely have German rap. Shout out. Speaking of independent artists, like there was definitely effort to get into other worldwide hip hop hubs. Germany being one of them. There's definitely some in the Far East. You know what I mean? Like as far as getting your music to the world. getting your content to the world. Yeah, there's even shout out to our listeners. There are listeners from around the world.
Indeed, indeed. All right, so the last point, and I will admit I didn't really know much about this: systematic exclusion from economic history. Now, I understand it overtly. It refers to two things, one being the GI Bill discrimination. Many Black veterans were denied access to the housing and education benefits that helped create generational wealth for white families after World War II.
Hmm.
That's messed up.
No, I see that. If you think about this over by the state hospital where we used to work, all those kind of those brick houses that were kind of all in those neighborhoods all around the state hospitals, those were all houses that were, I used to call it World War II houses, because they were built with that brick. They all have that red brick, single level look. And that those were the opportunities of the first suburbs that were, again, through gerrymandering, you know what I mean, drawing lines where they are going to approve housing applications for said people and not people. And as we were pushing through neighborhoods within the city in Philadelphia and in New York, there was always that pushback of, like, you're in our neighborhood, you know what I mean? And now, like, it's no wonder that the real white people left U.S. cities, and that, like, the rural white caucus, you know, voice, is a big supporter of this current, administration. You know what I mean? Like, they and then the generation underneath of us, those whites, they go back and live in the city, in the shore houses that they're building in like neighborhoods that were devastated, and former black neighborhoods. They go into the roughest of the roughest, and are setting up shop.
Yeah.
They're back with strollers and dogs.
An example of that, if you happen to be from Baltimore, is the Charles Village.
Yeah.
Like, um, I lived in Charles Village pretty much just before I left to come here to Vegas. That's where I was. I was staying in
Hmm.
Charles Village, and when I was young, it was basically the hood.
Yeah.
Like, because that area is like kind of like the bridge between East Baltimore and West Baltimore. Like, that's where on the map the convergence is North Avenue and uh, Charles Street.
Yeah.
That is the intersection that divides the city into the quadrants. And so, like, Northeast Baltimore essentially was hoodish.
Yeah.
But if you go around Charles Village today, those properties are being sold for minimum, 400,000 upwards towards a million,
Yeah.
and they're reclaiming that area of Baltimore. They're really reclaiming it, Baltimore as a whole. It's always just been a really slow process. But I'm glad you touched on the thing about redlining, because that was the last point that ChatGPT made. Talked about that issue.
And that's
So
appropriate, because my last point, with Black History Month upon us, is the change that happened one block away from where I live right now, right here in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, where there used to be a black section. There used to be black barbershop. There used to be a whole black neighborhood. Ironically, on Hector Street, which was the first street
shout out
ever
to
named in
Hector.
America after a black person, Ned Hector, Edward Hector, who was a soldier, in the Revolutionary War, fought in the Battle of Brandywine and the Battle of Germantown, two losses in the American War that he, achieved bravery in. The first street is Hector Street, and yeah, I remember in my lifetime coming up, onto Hector Street on a Saturday night, and like everyone was outside. You know what I mean? Like, there was bars, there were strip clubs, there were, clubs on the waterfront, like, and now this is not your father's country hockey. So Black history is happening, and they're trying to whitewash us even from neighborhoods that were ours. You know, mic drop.
Okay, so I want to answer the question now. I'll ask again for those who may have forgotten. What has to happen for a certain set of people to hate another set of people so bad that they would do all of these things to? You have any idea? Like, it could be the most outlandish thing, whatever comes to your mind. Like, what do you think would have to happen? Because I do believe, and I'm being leading when I say this, but I do believe there was a certain event that is like
I
the
think I
focal
think I
for
think
this.
I think the historical event that is being hidden from us all is the first time ever that jungle fever occurred, when a black man and his penis violated the white punani. It was a catalyst, and it had to be fought back against.
Shut up. Ew fool.
That's what made them angry enough to hang us, burn us, eat us, put us in boats, send us across the country, the world. That's what's like. He's like, no, you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
not
if it was that, then they brought that on themselves because they could have just left us the fuck alone. But I think it was deeper than that. I think it goes even further back. And
shout out to
I,
all
I,
the
I
Mandingo porn category that
shut up. So listen though, I'll tell you a story. Right when I was in high school, um, I we had this class called Western Civilization. That was part
yeah,
of the curriculum.
yeah, great class.
The guy that taught it, that's terrible. I can't think of my man name right now, but he was actually one of my favorite teachers there.
Yeah,
But he brought a guest into class one day. It's an author by the name of Anthony Browder. You may have heard of him. Um, they are friends or were friends. Like that's how he was brought to the class. And at the time, he wasn't necessarily promoting his book, but he had talked about the fact that he wrote a book. It's called the Anthony Broder Files, and in that book, he he states something, and he talked about it in that class, and I'll never forget this. He stated something that I didn't know what to think of at the time, mainly because there were some white people in our class. Like our school wasn't like, so it was the fact that he was saying it. And I was like, wow. Like I was more focused on that at the time. But anyway,
okay,
what he explains is basically the origin of the Caucasian race. And his explanation, to sum it up, is that it comes from the outcasted genetic defects of African tribes. Now, historically, African tribes were known to do that because they thought, like albinism and all that, they thought that was like a curse. And so when a child was born albino, they would either kill it or send it away. And according to him, ultimately, this casted people kind of migrated to the Caucasus Mountains, which better suited them, you know, just in terms of sunlight and melanin. And I'm trying to say this in a way that is not racist at all, but I'm just saying, like, if said white people were to come aware of this fact and they knew it to be a fact that they couldn't say wasn't, do you think that would make them angry enough to treat us this way?
Yes,
I do
yes,
too.
because yeah, what you're referring to is like, again, this is again going back to civilizations that were here before the ice age, and you know civilizations that were here after the ice age, and you know the people that were in Europe, yes, were, if you go back far enough, were the genetic minority, ironically, of the world. And
The
if you're,
genetic
like, if you're the genetic,
minority.
if you're the genetic minority, you wonder why black people are faster. You know what I mean? You wonder why it's such an anomaly to see two talented defensive players that are white on the Philadelphia Eagles that are athletic. You know what I mean? Like, that is such a an anomaly now. Because that, like, because of many reasons. You know what I mean? Like, our genetic line is a stronger line, and if that threatens you, then I would try to suppress it at every level that I could, and I would try to instill what I referred to as the skin wars within you know cultures and civilizations. You know what I mean? Like, I would inspire those conflicts. I mean, I would inspire division, within, to larger, control them on a larger level. You know, I'm empathetic. I could put myself into their shoes. Those inferior caucus folks, genetically.
Um, Kind of tying in, I guess, to American history with this. I saw this documentary, and basically it talked about like the origin of the South, and they were saying that the South was um, initially like the people that initially migrated to the South when they came to America were the Irish. I think it was the Irish. And for full disclosure, this guy who was hosting it was definitely an Irishman. So it's not like somebody else outside of the Irish culture was given this documentary. Apparently, like Irish people feel this way about it. But he talked about like how there was a like historically there was a there's always been like this heightened sense of fear. Like I don't want to say, but scared of everything. You know what I mean? And a lot of things that were done in the South were done under the guise of protecting themselves. From what I don't necessarily know, I mean, if I would have had this thought before we did this, I would have watched the documentary again so I could be
The
a little more.
Irish, the Irish, again, doing your history, coming out of slavery, coming into Jim Crow, coming into Southern migration, all the Southern, black people that, migrate, Southern migration, excuse me, the Southern migration, north to northern areas in northern cities, that era of the police force and the slave catching forces were dominated by Irish people. Like, it was seen that it was seen as, you know, low hanging fruit as far as opportunity for work, and better than working in a factory. Why not go?
Even when you fast forward to a little modern era, there's a lot of Irish people that are cops.
Yeah, that history goes back to further in history. That's where a lot of it comes from. So yeah, that again.
Now,
Uh,
again,
I am Saint Patrick, and, like, Saint Patrick is my day. but like there are some interesting ironies when you're hanging out with a you know freckle faced redhead on said day.
Shit. Yeah. So the last thing that I want to say, I feel like ICE agents are the new slave catchers,
Ooh,
and I'll leave it at that.
say less. We'll talk to y'all later.
Peace.
Peace.